Good morning, Toastmasters. Good morning, scientists. Good morning, suffragettes. Thank you very much for waking up on a Tuesday morning to hear my speech, Suffragette City. Hunter, Rick Hunter. Rick Hunter was thrown out of school for blowing up the chemistry lab. He's an unemployed part-time construction worker, member of Mensa. He's also an avid cave explorer with his fellow explorer, Steve Tucker, a professional accountant. Notice how thin and slender Steve is. It's going to become important to our story later on. Steve and Rick were exploring in the African continent, in the country of South Africa, over in the neighborhood or the region called Rising Star. This was one of the caves that Rick and Steve explored. They went in here, where at the entrance, many previous paleontologists and explorers have gone. Now over here is the Superman's Crawl, and past the Superman's Crawl, far fewer people have gone, very far fewer. And after the Superman's Crawl, you're in pitch black. They climbed up here. They found 7.5-inch gap. Remember, they're about 60 feet under the surface, middle of Africa, communicating with no safety or backup whatsoever. They see a 7.5-inch gap and they decide, hey, maybe it'd be a good idea to go further. So they squeeze their way through the 7.5-inch gap. Surprise, it comes to a 40-foot drop. However, it was a very narrow drop. So they were able to use their shoulders, elbows, and knees, sort of shimmy on down, where they came into Benedetti chamber and made an amazing discovery. This discovery was on Friday, September 13th. Now, I want you to think about where you were. I know that you were already a member of Adelante Toastmasters. You were already in California. In fact, the majority of you were already in the Campbell, West San Jose, Cupertino area, getting settled in with your families. That's how recent this Friday, September 13th date is. Well, Rick and Steve knew they had something, and they ran across a fellow explorer, Pedro Boshoff. Now, this is Pedro in all his exploring dirt. As you can see clearly, Pedro's never gone through a 7.5-inch gap in the last 30 years or more. Despite his grimy appearance, Pedro is a highly respected employee of the petroleum industry and the local universities. In fact, this motorcycle is a gift from a local university. So Rick and Steve, together with Pedro, decided, well, the next step would be to contact somebody that Lee works for, Pedro works for, and that is Lee Berger. Who's Lee Berger? Lee Berger is Mickey Mantle, Oprah Winfrey, Mick Jagger, Barack Obama, the Paul McCartney of paleontology. He is the peak #1 guy in paleontology for his time. Lee has got all sorts of honors. In fact, he's gotten his picture on the cover of Rolling Stone. No, I'm only kidding. On the cover of Scientific America, Science America, Time Magazine, numerous other scientific periodicals because of a discovery that Lee made in 2008. Wait a minute. Did I say Lee made that discovery? No. Lee's 9-year-old son, Matthew Berger, found numerous bones dating back almost 2 million years old in 2008. So now we've got a situation where the material has been reported to Lee. Lee is sponsored by a local university and National Geographic. They're not in the habit of giving out money without some pretty good evidence before they start spending millions of dollars on a dig. The problem is the pictures that were brought back the first time are, they could be anything. They could be chicken bones, deer bones, doll parts, who knows? But they need better pictures. Now there's two different versions of this chapter that I'm just about to tell. They contradict each other. They both cover the same area. I'm going to tell you both. You decide which one you want to believe. First version is they took Pedro's laptop down into the area, snapped some better pictures, and then forwarded those up to National Geographic. Second version, which did not begin to be shared until Matthew was 18 years old, was that four people we've mentioned went back to the Rising Star Cave, and Lee needed somebody who could take, was trained in paleontology and photography and could take quality pictures which would show the scale and knew what to look for. And the only one in South Africa immediately available could fit through a 7.5-inch gap was Lee's 14-year-old son. But he sent his teenager down into the pitch dark, 60 feet below the surface, down through the first gap, up the Devil's Back, shimmying through the 7.5-inch opening, dropping into the Denali chamber. He waited and waited. He didn't know if he was ever going to see his son again. 2 hours went by. He might have gotten a little bit anxious. Finally, after 2.5 hours, Matthew's head popped up, and he's displaying very remarkable pictures he's taken on his digital camera. Now they're armed. Forward the photographs to the National Geographic Society. Call the vice president of National Geographic at 2:30 in the morning on Eastern Time, and they get approval to begin a search. So Lee does what most of us do. He rushes to his social media page, and on Facebook, he requests help. He requests the person must be skinny and preferably small. Successful candidates should not be claustrophobic. They had to be cavers. They had to hold a relevant master's degree or doctorate. They needed to come to Johannesburg immediately. By the way, their transportation would be paid for, and their food, which would be meals, field meals, but they would not be paid for their labor. Who would be crazy enough to do this? Well, and think about it again. Most people about to complete a doctor's degree have somewhere between $60,000 and $180,000 in debt. You imagine that phone call when they call their parents and say, I'm stopping what I'm doing. I'm stopping this semester's classes, or I'm stopping this semester's teaching assistant work, and I'm going to go work for free in Africa, 60 feet below the surface. Lee's social media post went out on October 6th, sorry. And then on November 10th, the team was assembled. Here they are. This is the Rising Star team. You notice that all 6 rather small, you can't tell, but they're extremely brilliant women. They're called the Underground Astronauts. Why? Because this is where they work. Enter the cave. This is pretty common. Now you come here, the Superman's Crawl. Call the Superman's Crawl because even the slender, petite people cannot get through there without putting one arm in front of the other, like you're flying through the air. Make your shoulders a little bit more narrow so you can wiggle your way up there. And they go up Dragon's Back, and they come to the 7.5-inch gap where they shuffle on down, only to come to the 40-foot drop where they go down into the Denali chamber, and then they floor all over to the fossil site. This is filthy, dirty, dangerous work. And our 6 women just said, bring it on. What was the significance of the Rising Star dig? Well, the world's top anthropologists had worked for 50 years in East Africa and found a total of 100 hominoid fossils. Rising Star team found their first 100 hominoid fossils in 5 days of work. 19-day expedition and a second team working a nearby cave a few months later found a total of 1,500 hominoid fossils. It's more than double the entire number of hominoid fossils discovered worldwide. Usually fossils are found partially enclosed by hard rock or sediment. It takes weeks or even months to painstakingly remove the fossils from their enclosure. The fossils in the Dinaledi chamber were sitting on top of soft, dusty earth. The majority of the bones in the chamber were articulated. This means the finger bones were connected to the hand bone, connected to the arm, connected to the shoulder, all the way up and down the body. In a future speech, I will elaborate on the findings in the chamber. I want to conclude today listing the heroes and heroines of the expedition. Becca Piexto, PhD in biological anthropology from Simon Fraser University in Canada. Marina Elliott, Masters in Biological Anthropology. Anna Morris, Master's degree from Ohio State University. Alia Grutov, PhD candidate in hominoid foraging, working in Tanzania now, currently working and studying in Tanzania. Hunter, Lindsay Hunter, Masters from the University of Iowa. At the Rising Star expedition, she met and later married her husband, Rick Hunter. Fellow Toastmasters, fellow scientists, suffragists, whether you be a dropout or a child or a team of hungry, ambitious women, sooner or later, you're going to get that chance to go into the dark. And it's in the dark, mankind takes his steps forward and finds out what it, in the dark, mankind takes the next great leap forward in its knowledge. Thank you very much for joining me in my Tuesday morning speech.